UFC 274 Oliveira versus Gaethje takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main events, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Newson versus Fernie Garcia. It's Journey versus Fernie in the bantamweight division, and I'm going to side with Fernie Garcia here. He is the favourite, and I do believe that he's going to get this one done, maybe by TKO early on in the first round, I do believe. Newson has been KO'd a couple of times previously in his career. He's been head kick KO'd by Randy Costa. He's been put away by other guys and even rocked in fights that he's came back to win as well, I believe, against Domingo Pilate. Domingo Pilate isn't the best fighter in hindsight. Either way, I think Newson isn't physical enough to keep up with Fernie Garcia if it does get scrappy. I don't think he's going to have a grappling advantage here over Fernie Garcia. There is a chance that he could get a KO blow back himself because he has got a bit of power in his hands. However, and I hate to make this what I'm about to make this, Fernie Garcia is of the ethnicity that he is, and they just don't seem to get KO'd as easily as other people. So I'm going to trust in his chin here, and I think he'll go out there and get into a scrap with Newson early on and put him away against a cage in the first round. Fernie gets the win over Journey and improves to 11-1. He had one close split decision loss to a bit of a bum earlier on in his career, but he's beat some really good opponents, put away a good Contender Series opponent as well in the first round, and I think he's going to keep that momentum going and beat Newson in the first round. Moving on, up the card, Ariane Carnelossi versus Lupita Godinez. I'm going to go with Lupita Godinez over Ariane Carnelossi. I've seen a lot of people going for the underdog of Ariane Carnelossi here, but I am going to trust in Lupita Godinez because I think she's very good. She just beat Loma Lookboom. It was a very close fight, but she still got the decision win over Loma Lookboom, who I believe is one of the better strawweights on the roster. Arguably could be of that ranked level. She's a very, very technical and very well-rounded female fighter. She doesn't really have the grappling aspect, but she's good enough to keep it on the feet where she needs to and evade certain bad positions on the ground, and she's got really good stand-up, and Lupita Godinez was able to get a win over her. The only loss of her career so far in the UFC, I believe, is when she moved up to the division above, the women's flyweight division, and Ariane Carnelossi, she does have an experience advantage. She does have the shoulders of a man. She's on roids. That's, I think, undeniable at this point. She's on roids. I'm very certain of it. But I'm going to go with Lupita Godinez here as the favourite. I think she's good enough on the feet, good enough on the ground. Ariane Carnelossi was losing the fight to Estela Nunes across the board and came back and got a win in the third round by finish. Estela Nunes just got resoundingly beaten by Sam Hughes, who I don't really rate too highly in the women's strawweight division. Lupita Godinez, always active, very young in her career as well. Not much reach difference between them, half an inch advantage to Ariane Carnelossi. I just think Lupita Godinez has more potential. She's got good grappling. I don't see her being out-grappled by Ariane Carnelossi here. She's got good submissions as well. And I think that she'll be able to win this one on the feet. Ariane Carnelossi hasn't really impressed me so far in her career and hasn't fought too great of competition. But, you know, I'm going to go with Lupita Godinez here and ignore people going for the underdog. Moving on, up the card, Kleydson Rodrigues versus CJ Vergara. Great fight in the flyweight division. Been looking forward to Kleydson Rodrigues' debut for a while now. He is extremely good, extremely powerful. CJ Vergara is also a good flyweight as well. He's also, I believe, from the Contender Series. Had a very good performance there. But Ode Osborne gets to win over him in his debut. It was a very close fight, a very good scrap. I just think that these flyweights are going to realise a little bit of a power difference when they come up there against Kleydson Rodrigues. And I think his unorthodox style is going to freeze a lot of these flyweights as well, including CJ Vergara. He's very good. He can put people away early. He's got good knees and stuff like that, but I don't ever see it getting in that range. I think Kleydson Rodrigues is going to come out there, do a bit of weird movement, keep it at range, throw some spinning kicks, throw some big kicks in general, and just keep CJ Vergara guessing. Not to mention, he's only 26 years of age. He's a big, powerful flyweight, and I think he's going to keep his momentum from the Contender Series. He looked amazing there. He's got flying knees, spinning kicks. I think it's just going to be too much for CJ Vergara to download, and I think he's going to get a little bit overwhelmed mentally, and I can see Kleydson Rodrigues maybe winning the first 2 rounds, scoring a knockdown in one of those rounds as well, and CJ Vergara gritting down and maybe getting a job done in the third. But I'm going to go with Kleydson Rodrigues, 29-28, winning the first 2 rounds on his unorthodoxy and his power, getting that respect. And then once CJ Vergara survives, I think he might have a good 3rd round, but still 29-28, Kleydson Rodrigues. Moving on up the card, Tracy Cortez versus Melissa Gatto. I'm going to go with Melissa Gatto here over Tracy Cortez. I don't think Tracy Cortez is a good fighter. She's okay. She's actually beaten some decent competition opponents. The decisions are split in a lot of those cases. Like, she has a win over Erin Blanchfield earlier in her career. She has a good win also in her career over Justine Kish, who, you know, it isn't something to really write home about, but at the same time, Justine Kish has got a good win over at Bellator, I believe, since that loss. She beat Stephanie Egger, but that was on very short notice that Egger took that contest and she took her to a decision. Not really much finishing ability, especially compared to Melissa Gatto. I think Melissa Gatto is pretty underrated. 25 years of age. She's going to be improving rapidly in her career. She's got a 3.5-inch reach advantage here over Tracy Cortez. She's got a submission advantage, in my opinion. She's got good subs off of her back. She finished Carol Rosa in the first round with a Kimura. She just finished Ciara Eubanks, who is a big woman, arguably could be bantamweight size. Finished her off, had a tough early round, but toughed it out. She's very tough. Came back later on with a front kick to the body and put away Ciara Eubanks there. I know people are going to say, lol, Ciara Eubanks, she's terrible. She's a man. So Melissa Gatto can beat men. And I think she's going to beat Tracy Cortez here. I can see her doing well on the feet, having a power advantage, using that reach advantage on the feet, landing some big shots on Tracy Cortez. Then when Tracy Cortez tries to get it to the ground, I think she's going to be a little bit too panicky, a little bit too desperate to evade stuff on the feet to get it to the ground, not focus on what's going on the ground. And I think I can see Melissa Gatto getting something like a 2nd round armbar from on bottom after winning the 1st round on the feet early on. Melissa Gatto gets this one done. I just think she's got a physicality advantage over Tracy Cortez, who just sort of does pitter-patter stuff and ends up on top and does a couple of total strikes. Like, nothing too special from her. I'm going with the underdog Melissa Gatto. Moving on up the card, Francisco Trinaldo versus Danny Roberts. I'm going to go with I hate these ones. I hate them. They hurt me so much. Why do they hurt me? I'm going to go with Danny Roberts. Trinaldo doesn't seem to carry the same power at welterweight as he did in the lightweight division. Danny Roberts is a very big and very rangy welterweight, and he's also very technically sound. But his chin! His chin! His chin. But Trinaldo's 40 now. 43. Like, surely there's a time where it starts to... The Dwight Grant closeness isn't too great in hindsight. Dwight Grant has proven himself to be a pretty mediocre welterweight. Danny Roberts has been KO'd so many times and it's so risky. But at the same time, he does have some decent wins. Now, I do believe he lost to Ramazan Emeev. But it's Ramazan Emeev. He's a very good welterweight. He's not like a top-level welterweight, but he's a very good unranked welterweight. And Danny Roberts made it pretty close against him. I don't think he won, but he did make it very close in all of the rounds. I'm going to side with Danny Roberts. I think he'll play a patient game, be on the outside. Yes, he's been KO'd before in his career, but I'm so 50-50 on this one. I'm going to have to take the good underdog here in Danny Roberts, in my opinion. So I'm going to side with Danny Roberts. He's got a bit of a reach advantage, 4 inches. He's very, very rangy. He knows how to keep himself at range. He doesn't mind having a bit of a boring fight here and there. He does have a couple of wins in a row, so his confidence is going to be sky high. He should have beaten, arguably, Claudio Silva. He didn't even tap to the armbar. It wasn't even in, and the referee stepped in. It was a big controversy. But he's got confidence right now. You know what I mean? He's not coming off a KO loss. He's got a bit of momentum. And I think he's going to take out the old man, Francisco Trinaldo. Danny Roberts gets this one done in a very close contest, 29-28. Maybe there's a scare in one of the rounds where he gets dropped or something like that, but Trinaldo hasn't really had too many finishes recently. So I'm going to go with Danny Roberts getting this one done. 29-28, razor close decision win as an underdog. Moving on up the card to the prelims. Marcos Rodrigo de Lima versus Blagoi Ivanov. I'm going to go with Blagoi Ivanov here against Marcos Rodrigo de Lima. Marcos Rodrigo de Lima does have big power in his hands. He has got good grappling skill. I don't see him KOing Blagoi Ivanov. I don't see him out-grappling Blagoi Ivanov. Blagoi Ivanov's a very capable guy. Went 5 rounds of JDS. I know that was quite a while ago, but arguably could have got the win over Derek Lewis as well. He's proven himself against a much better level of heavyweight prospects than Marcos Rodrigo de Lima did. But then again, de Lima didn't look half bad against Romanov until the finish. I'm going to go with Blagoi Ivanov, though. Marcos Rodrigo de Lima is a bit of a finisher to me. Like, he's going to finish his opponents if he's going to win. He's been around for such a long time. He beat Maurice Green by decision, but, you know, that was a bit of a stinker of a contest. Just before that, he beat Ben Rothwell by TKO in the first round, or just after that, sorry, in his last fight. He beat Ben Sassoli by KO, lost to Alexander Romanov in 2019. He lost to Stefan Struve by submission. Like, there's just a bit of inconsistency with how well he performs. And I'm not going to trust that inconsistency against the consistency of Blagoi Ivanov's chin. Because that thing's made of granite. This man has been stabbed through the heart. And he just ignored it and kept going in life. I'm going to trust in Blagoi Ivanov getting this one done. They say there's a massive height difference. I don't think there's going to be too much of a height difference. They've got this 5'9" versus 6'1". I'm sorry, but I don't think Blagoi Ivanov's that short, but either way, I'm going to trust in Blagoi Ivanov to grit out a very close win, 29-28, and win the stand-up exchanges where he needs to by putting pressure on Marcos Rodrigo de Lima and getting it done 29-28, unanimous decision. Moving on, up the card, Brandon Royval versus Matthew Christopher Schnell. Brandon Royval. He's wild. He's got finishing ability at flyweight. Matt Schnell doesn't really have too much finishing ability recently in his career. A lot of decisions. I know his chin seems to have improved, and he is improving as a fighter. He's got very fast hands. I mean, he's a German descent guy, and I think his surname is literally German for quickly. He's got very fast hands. Brandon Royval's just so wild. And he has finishing ability. Remember, he's got a finish over Kai Kara France. Sure, he dislocated his shoulder in that Brandon Moreno fight, but even then it was a decently technical fight in the first round before it eventually went bad for him when that shoulder came out of place. But I'm going to trust in Brandon Royval here. Good submissions. They both had a very close fight with Rodrigo Montorin that arguably both could have lost, but Royval ended up getting the win. I don't even mind that, actually. I think he could have got the win there in that matchup. But I'm going to trust in Brandon Royval's wildness and his KO ability in the flyweight division to get this one done over Matt Schnell. So I can see him putting away Matt Schnell by TKO in the first round to, like, a spinning elbow or something crazy like that. He's just so wild, so unpredictable. Matt Schnell likes it to be very cut and dry, 1-2s down the pipe and stuff like that. And I think Royval's going to bait him into a scrap. And when he does, I think he's going to catch him on the chin and put away the often chinny Matt Schnell. Moving on up the card, Macy Chiasson versus Norma Dumont. I am going to be going with Norma Dumont here over Macy Chiasson. Norma Dumont, you know, she's good technically. She's a very good technical fighter. Macy Chiasson is similarly good technically, to be honest with you, for a women's fighter. She's actually going to be bigger than Norma Dumont going into this fight. Maybe we will see a great performance from Macy Chiasson, but she's been somewhat average in her recent performances. And Norma Dumont looks pretty good technically for a women's fighter. I know Chiasson does as well, but more so Dumont. And when you see good technique in women's MMA, especially in the higher weight classes compared to strawweight, you kind of have to take advantage of betting on that, in my opinion. I bet on Norma Dumont. She lost to Megan Anderson, but Megan Anderson is a massive woman. Happened to catch her with a big KO blow. Other than that, though, she beat Felicia Spencer pretty routinely and just outworked her over the 3 rounds. Felicia Spencer's a very big woman, so I don't see Chiasson being able to muscle around Norma Dumont like that. And Aspen Ladd, Norma Dumont just picked her apart at range as well. Fair play, Aspen Ladd didn't really show up to scrap that day, but she had a very close fight with Raquel Pennington recently as well. Very good scrap back and forth. And Norma Dumont was able to sort of like neutralize her and just pick her apart at range. So I am going to be siding with Norma Dumont here. Just picking apart Macy Chiasson for 3 rounds. Nothing too crazy goes on. Little bit of a tame fight. Little bit boring, but I'm going to trust in Norma Dumont's boxing because I think it's some of the best boxing in women's MMA from what I've seen, at least above the strawweight level. Norma Dumont gets this one done. 30-27. Every round's close, but she edges it out on volume with her hands. Namajunas gets this one done. Moving on, up the card, Randy Brown versus Chaos Williams. Randy Brown is the better fighter. Randy Brown is more technical. Randy Brown, in my opinion, has better cardio. He's more experienced. He's better. Chaos Williams by KO is what we're going to go with. He's not good. He's not technical. I don't know about his cardio either. Little bit one-dimensional in his fights. If you can be really technical with like unorthodox footwork like Mikel Pereira, you can beat him. I picked Mikel Pereira to beat him. But outside of that, you cannot sleep around this man, or this man will sleep you. And I think Chaos Williams is going to get this one done. And plus, although I'm mocking him on his technique, he's 28 years of age. He's going to make those differences up. And he's going to start to get a little bit more technical as the years go on. And I think that's going to do really well for him. I just think Randy Brown's going to be very, very hesitant. He made a very close fight with Jared Gooden, the freight train. I know Jared Gooden isn't the best of welterweights anyway, but Randy Brown did break his toe in that fight and kept going. So I understand that it wasn't going to be the best performance of his career. So maybe we see a better version of Randy Brown. He just does get clipped on the chin in fights quite a bit. Like, even in the close ones that he has, there are a lot of moments where he does get clipped and doesn't see it coming. Like, Luque put him away in an unorthodox position, hurt him earlier on in that fight as well. He finished off Alex Oliveira with relative ease, but that seems to be the case with a lot of Alex Oliveira opponents. He's just been KO'd before in his career. He's been hurt before in his career. And Nico Price put him away with hammer fists from on bottom. Listen, unorthodox, yes. That shouldn't be KOing you if you have a really good chin. You know? He was out after the first two. And I just think at some point in this fight, he will be hit by Chaos Williams. And if he is hit by Chaos Williams, don't think it's going to be too good for him. Plus, Chaos Williams has really good leg kicks as well. He goes to them quite a bit in his fights. I think that's going to be benefiting him here. Skinny legs, Randy Brown, very tall opponent, very long legs. So I think he's going to chop at the legs early on, and then maybe being outstruck, but round two. Lands a big KO, puts down Randy Brown, who might be ahead on the scorecards going into the second. Chaos Williams gets this one done. Late second round KO, I'd say. Moving on, up the card to the main card. Donald Cerrone versus Joe Lauzon. I'm going to trust with Donald Cerrone here. I'm putting my trust in him. He could let me down very well, yes. But I'm going to trust in Donald Cerrone. God, I didn't think I'd be saying that again. But Joe Lauzon has been out for a long, long time. I don't see him submitting Donald Cerrone. And he has got some good TKO ability. He came back in after a bit of time off as well and beat Jonathan Pierce. But then you look at some of the performances before that, and you know, he lost and got finished by Chris Gruetzemacher, and that was a dominant win for Chris Gruetzemacher. So I do worry about what happens if he doesn't get Cerrone out of there within the first 2 minutes of a barrage and an onslaught. Because he does have his losses, like Clay Guida put him away in the first round as well, and Stevie Ray got a decision win over him, and that wasn't all that competitive either. And, you know, and he beat Marcin Held, but, like, where are these guys now in the career of the UFC? And Jim Miller beat him, and he has had a lot of losses in his career. Sure, he does have a decently okay style to just jump back in and KO Cerrone, but after 3 years off, I mean, in hindsight, the Lauzon that stepped in there against Pierce had only been out for a year. So 3 years off. He's already got his other career going in IT and computer science and whatever he's doing. And I see him on some podcasts and stuff like that. So it's not like he's in the gym and he's in the trenches the way Donald Cerrone has been over the past couple of years. So I think that he's going to lose this one, to be honest with you. I really don't see him getting this one done. It's a lightweight bout. Cerrone has had his better work at lightweight recently in his career compared to welterweight. I don't know why that is. I guess because welterweight's just hit a little bit harder. So although I don't mind Joe Lauzon's chances, I think if Cerrone can survive a little bit of trouble early on, which I think he will be able to against Lauzon, who's not going to be all systems go early on. He's not going to be the best he's ever been after 3 years off. I can see Cerrone surviving him. doing good towards the end of the first round, doing good in the second round, starting to land some really big kicks and hurting Joe Lauzon to the body and stuff like that, and then maybe putting him away with a rear naked choke after hurting him, crumpling him up against a cage. Cerrone jumps on a rear naked choke and gets the job done. It would hurt me to see him lose again, because I think this is a bit of a gimme to bring Joe Lauzon back after 3 years off and say, here you go. I just don't think Joe Lauzon even is going to be like, I'm fighting for my career right now. You've got another career. Cerrone's like, I need to win this or I'm done forever. Like, I don't even want to fight at Bellator. I don't even know if they'll even want me with this many losses on my record either. So, I reckon I'm going to go with Donald Cerrone. Second round finish against Joe Lauzon. Moving on, up the card. Mauricio Shogun Rua versus OSP2. The rematch. OSP finished him the first time by first round KO. Yeah, here's the deal. OSP, although he's like soy and stuff, he did okay against Jamal Hill in that first round, arguably. He was chewing up his legs. He does okay, and then he just doesn't do okay anymore, and he gets hit by a big punch. I just don't see Shogun Rua catching OSP or just beating him up across 3 rounds at this point in his career, because Shogun Rua is, how do I say this very politely? He is without testosterone in his body. And I think that's a big problem for him. And I just don't see any explosiveness in his career. I mean, him versus Nogueira not too long ago. He arguably could have lost that one. And they gave him the win anyway. But, you know, he arguably could have won it as well. I get it. But at the same time, his chin's not all there. And they just looked so slow. And I think the difference between him a couple of years ago and him now is the Paul Craig fight. You know what I mean? The first Paul Craig fight that he had, they went to a draw. It was a little bit of a fun scrap. And he comes back a year and a bit later, or a year and a half later, and Paul Craig just completely obliterates him and gets him out of there with relative ease. I just think that OSP is educated enough on the feet. Jesus. OSP finishes. If OSP doesn't finish him or doesn't look good here, he is the most underperforming fighter in UFC history. He should destroy Shogun Rua. He finished him before. I think because of that, Shogun's going to be a little bit hesitant to get in there and trade, which I think is what he has to do to get the win here. I don't see him picking apart OSP at range. So I think I'm going to go with OSP, getting this one done by KO in the second round or submission with the Von Flue choke maybe. Maybe he gets like a bunch of leg kicks, puts Shogun Rua off balance with a big leg kick in round 2, gets on top into half guard, goes for the Von Flue choke. Or the Von Prue choke, as it's called, because he gets them so much. I'm going to go with second round submission for OSP. If he doesn't win this one, he is a disgrace of a man. Moving on, up the card. Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chandler. Oh, Tony. Tony. I'm going to go Michael Chandler first round KO. I just think Tony's done. And I know this could be played in like an epic CSO Snapdown City montage on his Instagram where I just said, I think Tony's done. And then it's like, oh, really? You think? Tony rises from the ashes and he gets a win. But I just think he's done at this point. Like, Dariush just taking him down. I think Chandler can just take him down. You know what I mean? Even if he doesn't go out there and get the KO in the first round like I think he's going to, I think Chandler can just take him down. I think the blueprint is there. Like, Ferguson, in hindsight, is not a strong man. You know what I mean? He's not strong. He can be thrown around a little bit. I think a lot of people feared his ground game when he was in his prime. And it kind of got exposed as a little bit of a myth. You know what I mean? Like, he does have a really good ground game, don't get me wrong, but we often see Tony Ferguson get his submissions in his career, in his jiu-jitsu moments, when his opponent is gassed out, like Kevin Lee. I'm really already given up, and then they put themselves in a triangle, you know what I mean? Or when not Anthony Pettis, but when other guys that Tony Ferguson has submitted in his career, like Edson Barboza, is starting to wilt and break down after Ferguson's pressure, and then he puts himself in a dash choke, and Ferguson latches it up and gets it, you know what I mean? Like, I just land over that at the same situation as well. He's starting to do really well. He starts to break down. Ferguson starts to wear on him. He gets the submission win. I think there's so many ways for Chandler to go about this fight. He was able to escape Oliveira's submissions on the ground in their fight that they had. Oliveira had his back. And he managed to find his way out of it and end up on top and land some good ground and pound shots. Should he have stood back up and finished off Oliveira? Yes, he definitely should have. I just think that Ferguson's not going to push to grapple him. And if he is, I think that's going to be worse for him because Chandler's just going to get right back up and right back to work. Chandler's got very good leg kicks. We saw that against Justin Gaethje. I think he's going to come out there, a lot of weird movements, chewing at the leg of Tony Ferguson early on, slowing him down, and then step in, bap, bap, put him away. Big 1-2. Ferguson's hurt and wobbly. And the problem is the referees aren't going to give him that leeway that he maybe had earlier in his career. A modern day referee in MMA could have stopped Lando versus Ferguson. In a way. When he was stumbling all over the place, if a referee stepped in and Ferguson was still wobbling and rolling, like, that would be a justified stoppage in today's MMA. I just don't like his style of recovery at times with the more strict stoppages that we have right now as well. So even if Chandler does hurt him badly and he's wobbling, I still see the referee stepping in, you know what I mean? Like, sure, Ferguson's got a good chin, but Chandler's just got a different level of speed that you don't see coming. And I think he's going to go out there, chew up the legs of Ferguson at range, maybe shoot a takedown, make Ferguson think about it, land some big shots on the ground, get back up, separate. Ferguson gets back up, shakes off the shots, snap down city time, more leg kicks from Chandler. Ferguson's trying to spin, he's trying to do front kicks to the body and stuff like that. But I think Chandler's just going to slip on the inside of his jab. Ferguson's chin is constantly up in the air. I can just see Chandler slipping on the inside of Tony's jab and blasting a right hand over the top and dropping him badly. I don't want to see it. I don't want it to happen, but I just think Chandler's got this one, man. I think he just knows Ferguson's had his career, kind of. You know, he's made his money. He's made a decent amount of money in his career. So has Michael Chandler. But for Chandler, being relevant in the UFC just that little bit longer, there's a McGregor fight on the line if he wins this one. And that's the way Chandler's mind thinks. So I think coming into this one, it's not my back's against a wall and I need to win like it is for Ferguson. It's just like, right, I've got a big opportunity to make a statement against Ferguson, get a big win on pay-per-view, and start calling my next shot. I had a very close fight with Oliveira. I had a very close fight with Justin Gaethje. I can maybe call out Dustin Poirier. I can look for Conor McGregor after this. Like, there's so many avenues for him, and he knows that. The damage he took against Gaethje was a lot, but if we want to talk about damage people took against Gaethje, Ferguson's in the same boat, and he's way older. I just don't see him winning this one. And how long has Ferguson been out for now? I'm sure Chandler's a little bit more active than him. I'll just check that right now, though. Tony Ferguson, not too much more active, though, I assume. But Tony Ferguson's last fight was in May of... He's been out for a whole year. Against Chandler, who's going to be switched on early, who fought in November, 6 months ago. I think he's going to get sparked out. First round KO, Michael Chandler puts him away. Chandler gets it done. Moving on to the co-main event, Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza. I'm going to be going with Rose Namajunas here. Carla Esparza won the first fight, of course. Somewhat impressively, to be honest. I just watched the fight back. There wasn't too much technique on display in reality, but, you know, she got the job done over Rose Namajunas. She mixed in her grappling. Also had a decent time on the feet as well. Managed to get the choke out in the third round by rear naked choke. Rose Namajunas is so different from back then. Back then, she was throwing spinning kicks, jumping front kicks. It was just like she was sort of like improving her way through the game of MMA. In a way back then. She was so young in her career. Carla Esparza is also still she's 34, you know what I mean? Like, she's not a 38, 40-year-old female fighter that's maybe going to be over the hill. So she's going to be in there to have a good time against Rose Namajunas. I just don't see her really out-grappling Rose Namajunas. I definitely don't see her finishing Rose Namajunas. And I think Rose Namajunas' stand-up game has improved so much that I just don't see her losing this one. I'm actually glad that Esparza has a win over her previously because it makes the odds quite close. I think if Esparza was just a regular contender, had exactly the same performances that she's had now leading up to this fight, I think Namajunas is just going to be like a 4-1, 5-1 favourite over her. Very, very good. Very, very technical on the feet. She showed a good grappling improvement against Zhang Weili. Of course, she got taken down, but she didn't really have anything done to her on the ground. Worked her way back up. Got her own takedowns. Showed that she had to work on that in that Zhang Weili fight. So she's kind of coming off of a wrestling training camp against Zhang Weili, and she's going to carry that over into this Carla Esparza fight. And for Carla Esparza, in her recent performances, I'm just looking at some of the performances that she's had against other opponents, and I'm thinking to myself, like, you had a tough one with her and she isn't Rose Namajunas. Sure, she beat up Yan Xiaonan on the ground, but that's sort of been Yan Xiaonan's weakness. Marina Rodrigues took her to a split decision, eventually started doing better as the rounds went on, or had a good time early on, stuffing the takedowns with a bit more ease. Esparza started to do better as the rounds went on and had a very good third round against her, but Marina Rodrigues had a very good first 2 rounds, outlanded Carla Esparza on significant strikes, doubled her in the second round, over doubled her in the first round as well. So if Marina Rodrigues can stuff the takedowns early and manage to outland you on the feet, I think Namajunas can do it. Even the Michelle Waterson bout, that was a very close one. It could have gone either way. Esparza wasn't really able to do anything on the ground there. The Alexa Grasso bout, Carla Esparza had some takedowns early on, but as the rounds went on, Alexa Grasso had more and more success stuffing the takedowns. She just doesn't dominate people on the ground anymore. And I think the difference between the other contenders and Rose Namajunas in terms of ground game and striking game is just a little bit too much of a difference. I'm going to have to go over Rose Namajunas, and I'll go over Rose Namajunas by a 4th round finish. Rear naked choke maybe. In all honesty, she gets Esparza with what Esparza got her with. She's doing good on the feet. She's chewing up the legs of Esparza. Esparza maybe gets a takedown, but Namajunas threatens an armbar and scrambles and works her way back up to her feet against the cage. Esparza's trying to knee her in the thigh, stomp on her feet, but Namajunas shifts out of the way, front kicks to the body, big shots. Maybe she drops Esparza in the second round, but Esparza shoots a takedown and survives. I just think it's going to be tough for Esparza to get this one done. She's not too dominant in her grappling against other contenders that I think have a lesser grappling game than Namajunas. So I'm going to go with Namajunas getting this one done. And also Esparza does seem to have her worst moments, like she did against Alexa Grasso. If she can't get her way in the grappling early on, she seems to slow down a bit. And this is a 5-rounder. And Namajunas has been 5 rounds a lot of times now in her career. So I think I'm going to trust her to get this one done. Namajunas, rear naked choke, 4th round on Carla Esparza, who's gassing out, starting to shoot sloppy takedowns because her eye's swollen up. She's beaten up a little bit. Namajunas sprawls it, takes the back, puts the hooks in. Rear naked choke, round 4 for Rose Namajunas. Moving on to the main event, Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje. Now this is intriguing. I'm going to go with Charles Oliveira. There has been a tug back and forth. I might go Gaethje, I might go Oliveira, but my original plan, Oliveira wins that fight, man. I think he does. There's such a jiu-jitsu lack of awareness in Justin Gaethje, and we saw that against Khabib Nurmagomedov. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, that's just how good Khabib is. You know what I mean? But Khabib missed weight for that fight, and he had to cheat on the scales. He had a broken toe in that fight as well. If anything, that was the worst Khabib we've seen. And he still was able to walk down Justin Gaethje, who did good on the feet, chopped at the legs of Khabib, landed some decent shots on Khabib as well. But on the back foot, Gaethje doesn't really have that lights-out power the way he does when he's sort of seeking and destroying against Edson Barboza after he eye pokes him, or seeking and destroying against James Vick and puts him away, and it's James Vick. It's Donald Cerrone. These guys aren't known for their chins that Gaethje's putting away, whereas Alvarez, who equally is seen as chinny by some people, was able to take those shots off Justin Gaethje. I know it's a very different Justin Gaethje now. He's a lot more technical, but still, is he? Or are his opponents just not able to take him to that war that previous opponents were? Chandler took him to that war. You know, Gaethje was technical and landed the shots that he needed to in the second round and stuff like that, but I just don't think they're going to be open against a much rangier Charles Oliveira. Sure, he could go out there, chew up the legs of Oliveira, wear him down, beat him up and finish him, but I think Oliveira is a man of moments. He's a man of opportunity in these fights, and when Justin Gaethje shows so little jiu-jitsu awareness against Khabib and gives up his back and gives up position on top, like, I've got to pay attention to that. Sure, he showed great takedown defense against Michael Chandler. That's after they were in a war for a very long time. I think Charles Oliveira, who has been saying this entire week long, I'm going to go out there and push him back and beat him up with my hands. If you look at the training footage of Oliveira, a footage came out of his training camp with him sparring with his sparring partners, and both of them landing big shots back and forth. They're scrapping. What happened afterwards? When Oliveira was done swinging back and forth, he double-legged his training partner. Next training partner comes in. They're scrapping. Oh my God, Oliveira's going crazy in the gym. He double legs in the middle of that scrappy exchange. And even if Gaethje kicks him off and gets back up, he will give up his back at some moment. And that's what Poirier ended up doing in the 3rd round. Sure, he stuffed the takedown. Oliveira's not the strongest of guys. He's not going to pick you up with ease and dunk you down unless you're as weak as Tony Ferguson. Fuck, I hate insulting Tony Ferguson with accuracy. Either way, Gaethje will stuff the takedown, but Oliveira will keep on him, push him to the cage, put one hook in, take the back, and choke him out in round 1, I think. It's going to be very scrappy. I think Oliveira is not going to have the same approach that he did against Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier does very good straight shots. We saw that against Oliveira. 1-2s down the pipe. They work to treat. Whereas Gaethje's more of a hooking type of guy. You know what I mean? Hooks, uppercuts, leg kicks, sort of what Gaethje does. Very close range attacks. You'll very rarely see Justin Gaethje throw a very good jab or a really good straight right hand down the pipe that's going to land. So I think Oliveira's approach is going to be different, like it has been against previous opponents, even like Tony Ferguson. I think he's going to go out there, jumping front kicks to the body, spinning back kicks to the body, leg kicks of his own at range, oblique kicks, move out the way, straight 1-2s. I don't think he's going to be going out there looking for hooks and elbows and knees to the body the same way he was against Dustin Poirier and other opponents. It worked out against Chandler in the 2nd round. Of course, he did lose the 1st round to Chandler, but arguably so did Gaethje, a little bit differently, of course. Oliveira's going to go out there, play a much rangier game. He'll then educate a brawl, or sort of accept a brawl happening with Justin Gaethje. They'll scrap, blast double leg. Gaethje will stuff it, get back up, but give up his back in the process. Charles Oliveira standing rear naked choke in round 1 is what I'm going to go with here. I called a standing rear naked choke against Dustin Poirier. I'm going to do the same thing here against Justin Gaethje. Standing rear naked from Charles Oliveira against Justin Gaethje. Sure, Justin Gaethje stuffs the takedowns, but it's not enough. He's going to give up his back on the way back up. Oliveira's going to pounce on him. I'm done doubting Oliveira. A lot of people keep doubting this man. I'm done. He's too well-rounded. And also, I want to mention this. The worst we've ever seen Gaethje on the feet in fights was against Khabib. The grappling terrified him. You could just see it on Gaethje in that fight. He looked small. He was hunched over. He was hesitating on nearly everything he threw. Khabib was going at him, shooting a couple of takedowns here and there. And sure, Gaethje stuffed those takedowns initially. But you could see it on Gaethje. He was so overthinking it because it's the title fight. His parents are in the crowd. This is his big moment. It's not the big moment for Oliveira anymore. He's a defending champion. This is his 2nd defense. He's been here. He's done it. I believe it's in the home state of Justin Gaethje as well, in Arizona or something like that. Am I not mistaken? Let me have a look. Is it in Arizona? Phoenix, Arizona. I think that's... Isn't that the home state of Gaethje? It might not be the home state. Maybe it was going to be in the home state. But the crowd is going to be heavily Justin Gaethje. I do believe. And I think that pressure on him and the thought of the takedown coming at any point, and also the power in Oliveira's hands that he has, Gaethje knows if he makes a sudden mistake, it's over for him. And I think that's just going to play too much in his mind. He's going to be overthinking the stand-up. He's going to be overthinking the grappling. And eventually Oliveira, who can lead the dance here, is going to come out, jumping front kick Gaethje straight away, push him back, use a couple of hand movements, spinning back kick to the body against Gaethje as well. Leg kick to the leg, of course. Gaethje trying to swing back and forth. Oliveira front kick to the body again. Big shot from Oliveira on Gaethje that kind of stuns him a little bit, but he recovers himself. He maybe gets a takedown shot on him. Gaethje stuffs the takedown, but now the thought of the takedown's in Gaethje's mind. Oliveira, Gaethje going back and forth. Both guys throwing. They're starting to scrap a little bit now towards the halfway point of round 1. Justin Gaethje scrapping back and forth, looking to load up some hooks and uppercuts. Oliveira shoots a double leg. Gaethje stuffs it. Oliveira jumps on the back and chokes him out at the end of round 1. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.